People left their homes in the morning, and by evening, the streets were empty. The air choked with black smoke, and massive trenches burned. At the edge of the flames stood a king, watching his own citizens burn. To understand how a city reaches that point, we must go back to the beginning. Ancient Yemen was ruled by a king with absolute power. He controlled the military, dictated the law, and held the region's immense wealth. But he lacked one crucial asset: the true devotion of his subjects. He saw people bowing down, but he knew it wasn't out of love. To bridge that gap, he declared himself their lord, their actual god. To enforce this lie, he relied on an aging magician who used illusions to terrify the public into submission. This setup meant the king's survival was now tethered to a manufactured truth. Because his power didn't come from the people, but from a managed illusion, his entire empire was only as strong as the magician's last trick. Even a small crack in that narrative threatened to bring the entire structure down. That crack started when the magician grew old. His hands trembled and his mind weakened. He warned the king that his dark arts would die with him unless he trained a brilliant young apprentice to inherit the machinery of deception. Soldiers scoured the streets, testing the sharpest children, and finally selected a single, unnamed boy to carry on the work. During his daily commute to the palace, the boy crossed paths with a monk known as a Rahib. The Rahib taught him Tawhid, the core belief that there is only one true Lord, Allah, who actually controls the universe. The boy found himself trapped between two opposing worlds. In the morning, he absorbed the state-sponsored deception of the king's magician. In the evening, he sat with the Rahib, absorbing a truth that felt right in his heart. Because the regime relied entirely on this one apprentice to continue its mass deception, the state had unknowingly created its own worst vulnerability. This single street boy had become the single point of failure for an entire kingdom. The boy needed proof of which path was real. One day, a terrifying beast blocked a main road, paralyzing the city. The boy picked up a stone and prayed, "O Allah, if the Rahib is on the truth, strike down this beast." He threw the stone. The beast collapsed instantly. Word spread, and the boy began healing the sick through his prayers to Allah. Eventually, this reached the royal court. The king's own blind advisor sought out the boy, was cured, and returned to the palace. But when the king asked who restored his sight, the courtier openly declared it was Allah, rejecting the king entirely. The king panicked. He tortured the courtier until he gave up the boy's name, and then he dragged the Rahib into the palace. When the monk refused to abandon his faith, the king ordered him sawn in half. Finally, the boy was captured and brought before the throne. By resorting to the saw, the king admitted he had lost the argument. He could end the monk's life, but he was discovering that while flesh can be cut, an idea is much harder to kill. The king tried to eliminate the boy quietly. He sent his guards to throw the teenager off a high mountain peak. Instead, the boy prayed, an earthquake shook the summit, and the guards fell to their deaths. The boy calmly walked right back into the king's court. Furious, the king tried again. He ordered soldiers to take the boy out to the middle of the ocean and drown him. Again, the boy prayed, and a massive storm erupted, instantly sinking the ship and drowning the executioners in the dark water. For the third time, the boy returned to the palace alive. For the king, this wasn't just an annoyance, it was a demonstration of a hard limit. He was discovering that his absolute authority, which governed every street and soldier in the kingdom, had no power over this single boy's life. Standing before the furious king, the boy delivered an impossible paradox. He looked the tyrant in the eye and said, "You cannot kill me unless you do exactly as I say." The boy gave precise instructions. The king had to gather the entire population of the city into a single open field, load an arrow into his bow, and publicly shout, "In the name of Allah, the Lord of the boy," before firing. Blinded by his ego and a desperate need to show dominance, the king complied. He gathered the city, shouted the exact words the boy commanded, and fired. The arrow struck, and the boy was martyred. Instantly, a roar swept through the crowd. Witnessing this proof, thousands of citizens declared their belief in the Lord of the Boy. This diagram shows the logic of the boy's strategy. By forcing the king to invoke Allah's name to finally land the lethal strike, the boy weaponized his death. He tricked the tyrant into acting as a microphone, broadcasting his ideological defeat to the nation. The king entirely lost his grip on sanity. In a final act of mass terror, he ordered his soldiers to dig massive, deep trenches, the Ukhdood, fill them with fuel, and set them ablaze. Anyone who refused to renounce their new faith was thrown in. The tragedy reached its peak at the edge of the flames. A mother, holding her infant child, stepped up to the roaring trench. Overcome with the instinct to protect her baby, she hesitated. In that second, the infant spoke, telling its mother to be patient and remain steadfast, because they were standing on the truth. Consoled by her child, the mother stepped forward, and they plunged into the fire together. Those believers falling into the flames represent a profound level of conviction. It shows that human belief can become so deeply rooted that it overrides even the most basic biological fear. But the fire, meant to be a mass grave, turned into an engine of justice. A sudden, violent tempest tore through the city, and fierce winds whipped the towering flames backward, straight out of the trenches. The inferno engulfed the king, his advisors, and his entire standing army. The oppressors who built the fire were reduced to ash in a matter of seconds. Today, different kinds of fires are still burning. We see them in the form of manufactured hunger, corrupt legal systems, modern bombs, and modern tyrants who sit in palaces convinced they are untouchable. This history serves as a reminder that worldly oppression is often much more fragile than it appears. The story suggests that even when a tyrant seems to have won, the truth they tried to bury has a way of outlasting them. If you believe people are still standing up for the truth today, let us know in the comments. Like the video and subscribe for more.